With more powerful consoles comes more possibilities. People are starting to feel that Mega Man X could use a big shakeup. So what better way to evolve the gameplay than to bring it to the third dimension? In comes Mega Man X7. Turns out that was a bad idea. It's really bizarre how Mega Man X was consistently good up until X5, and then had two stingers in a row with X6 and X7. I'm not hiding X7's reputation. We all know about the bad voice acting, the terrible game design, and slow gameplay, which is why I never felt the need to play it until now. Most people haven't, honestly. Everyone on the internet was like, it's bad, and everyone else was just like, okay. So here I am, experiencing this for myself. Let's see what happens. Just like last time, X7 barely has a story, so I'm just getting it out of the way first. X7 actually starts it off as a new character named Axel. He's a member of Red Alert, a group of vigilante Maverick hunters. As it turns out, X has retired from the front lines because he's tired of all the fighting. Like, I get the guy's been through a lot, and he's never liked fighting to begin with, but isn't that the entire point of his character? He's a pacifist. He hates fighting, but he still does it because he knows that sitting back and doing nothing just leads to more violence. It's such a giant mystery of his entire being that I have to question how anyone thought this would be a good way to create conflict. Why would X suddenly be such a whiny bitch? It doesn't make any sense. But because X eats unhappy meals now, you can't play as him at the beginning. Starting the game out as a new character is actually pretty cool. It forces you to get used to playing as someone else. You even get a taste of Zero to see how he feels before they let you swap between them. Getting to play as X last isn't something that I have an inherent issue with. It's just that you're not going to unlock him until like 6 or 7 stages in. That's just stupid, and I don't have to explain why it shouldn't take so long to unlock the titular Mega Man Twitter. It just makes you annoyed that you can't play as the main character for most of the game. That's like playing a Sonic game and not being able to play as Sonic until halfway through. Like, what? Anyway, Axel leaves Red Alert because their leader, Red, kept getting more and more violent, and he didn't like where the organization was heading. Not to mention that it felt like they were just using him for his ability to transform to other humanoid reploids. An ability that sounds overpowered, but is totally useless in gameplay. I'll get into that later. Red wants Axel back for obvious reasons, so he challenges the Maverick Hunters for a duel to determine who the real Maverick Hunters are. And they just accept, I guess. Axel uses this as an excuse to make up for his wrongdoing, so him and Zero beat up 8 more Mavericks like usual. There's a cutscene after every boss, but most of it doesn't really add anything. It does give Axel more screen time, but it's mostly just Axel talking to Zero and Zero being annoyed that he's talking to him. It's just kind of there. Most of it just feels like filler dialogue that drags out the playtime. I do like Axel as a character, and I think it's interesting that he resents his own copy ability because people just use him for it. But again, it's all just kind of there for the most part. They don't do much with it. Like, they set up this big mystery with Red Alert, like, oh, why did Red change? How did Red Alert use Axel's DNA to get stronger? It's Sigma. It's always Sigma. And that's the thing. The game has these political undertones, where the only reason why Red Alert exists is because someone thought the Maverick Hunters were useless. Because, X and Zero really are just buddy cops when you start to think about it. A rival organization that's morally gray would be a really interesting dynamic. A group of hunters willing to do the dirty work that the official Maverick Hunters would never consider. They're still trying to do good at the end of the day. They just have a much different way of doing it. But they teamed up with Sigma, so all that's just thrown out the window. The game ends exactly like you'd expect. Sigma's defeated like usual. Axel tries to permanently join the Maverick Hunters, to which X says no to. But he's still there in X8, so okay. X7's story really did try to do something cool, but between the game giving up halfway through and the blah voice acting, it's just hard to care about any of it.
How can you say that? If we fight, we'll fall right into their hands. We can't allow this madness to continue.
Now, I don't think the voice acting is as bad as other people think it is. Anyone who says X4's acting is better is lying to themselves. It's just mediocre with tons of weird line delivery.
Dude, your breathing's getting heavy. Calm down. Anyway, in a way, this is exactly how I'm repaying Red.
It's not good enough to be enjoyable, but it's also not bad enough to be enjoyable. But I've played ZX Advent so many times that I might just be immune to how terrible the voice acting actually is.
I'm going to go ahead and meet our booty face to face.
Yeah, they brought back this cast for that game for some reason. I hope the actors did the best they could given the probably lack of direction. But if we can get these kinds of results twice, perhaps something went wrong with the production. Alright, let's talk about the obvious first. The game's 3D now. Sometimes. X7 still has plenty of 2D sections, but there's also a lot of 3D. It's maybe like a 50-50 split. Axel and X even lock on enemies, so shooting is pretty easy. It's only really a problem when there's too many enemies, and using R2 to switch targets takes too long to get to what you're actually trying to hit. I kind of expected the camera to be annoying since you can't control it, but there were maybe only like 2 spots in the whole game where it felt like the camera didn't do its job right. Okay, you actually can control the camera, sometimes, but it's mapped to L1 and R1, and the right stick switches weapons. And it's not like like the weapon wheel in Mega Man 11. It's just how it worked before, where you can cycle between everything. But now it's mapped to the right stick. I get that Japanese players and developers took longer to adjust how 3D works, but it's just a weird mindset in general. Like, what's the right stick supposed to do otherwise? Why use the shoulder buttons for this? Because the right stick makes you switch weapons, I just assumed that the shoulder buttons didn't do anything, and I didn't think you could move the camera. So that's cool. The 3D camera's fine otherwise, not much to really say about it. Ironically, I felt that the 2D sections could be a bit too zoomed in at times, not the 3D ones. I can kind of see why some might think the 3D sections are boring, because you can move a bit slow and you can run past a lot of enemies. But I think they actually managed to make the game control pretty well, aside from the lock-on thing when there's too many enemies. You do move a bit too slow, but the stages aren't big enough for the movement speed to bother me. The enemies definitely needed to be more threatening in 3D though. Most of them just stand around not doing much. If you look at Quake, they made the enemies more aggressive than they were in Doom, because they'd be too easy to ignore otherwise. Doom may look like a first-person shooter, but it was really just a top-down shooter from a first-person perspective. A truly 3D space gives the player more room to maneuver around. So if you want to make a challenging game, you have to make enemies that take that into account. X7 kinda doesn't. Every now and then, there's even an obstacle that you can just move around. Like in Gungaru's stage, there's this wall that you're supposed to break, but doing a dash jump around it is so trivial to do that it's easier to ignore it, especially if you come in with Axel, who has an air hover by default. The set air hover is weird because you can't just activate it in the air. You have to keep holding the jump button after you jump to activate it. It's weird and awkward, and it killed me a few times. But speaking of Axel, he's a new playable character. At least he's supposed to be. Axel is literally just a worse X. I'm not kidding. He does less damage than X and has virtually all the same abilities. Axel doesn't even get a charge shot. Some rescued Reploids give you upgrade parts to increase your character stats, like your attack power and firing speed. And even before he started upgrading everyone, X still does more damage than Axel by default. Like, seriously, Axel does so little damage that you're better off switching to Zero when you actually want to kill something. Which is another new mechanic. Instead of picking one character, you have two characters that you can swap between. And it does make sense. They're an elite squad of Maverick Hunters. Why are they going in by themselves? But in practice, it's a bit pointless because you're just gonna pick X and Zero. There's no reason to use Axel once you finally unlock X. Axel does have a copy shot that lets him turn into certain enemies temporarily, which is really cool, but you also never have to use it. The game never tells you how to use it. I think you have to hold triangle to charge it up, then you can fire it, but I was never able to successfully activate it, so that should say how useful it is. You use it to rescue a few Reploids. That's it. No forms are useful enough to actually use otherwise. There isn't really that much to say about the other characters. X is literally just a better Axel, so I already told you what he plays like. Although Zero definitely doesn't feel as good as he did before. Like, I don't know, his saber slashes just don't have the same oomph as they did on PS1. It's hard to describe. Maybe because his attacks are so much slower compared to how lightning fast they were before. Also, the range of his attacks feel like they're just barely not long enough. There were quite a few times where it felt like I should be able to hit the enemy, but I couldn't. It's hard to tell where my attacks even land. There's definitely a lack of quality of life in X7. Look no further than how bad the UI is in this game. Like, I didn't realize that the stage you're selecting is in the top left. Like, I thought it was on the right side that's being covered up by the stage preview monitor thing, which was definitely a stupid way of looking at this in hindsight, but I didn't know which icon I was selecting. That's just bad UI design. I've never had this problem with any other Mega Man game. It doesn't help that it also tells you the area instead of the boss. It also does this in X6 and X8. That's just weird. They always told you the name of the boss instead of the area they're in. It put more emphasis on who you had to take down instead of where he had to go, because you are just here to fight this guy and nothing else. It just felt more to the point. X7 is also bizarrely handholdy. Like, these people are telling me how to use a menu. I think I can figure out how to use a save screen, thanks. The stage results screens are clunky too. There's a weird amount of delay between pressing a button and seeing something happen, and you have to go through a yes/no prompt when you want to do anything. Are you sure you want to save? Are you sure you want to go back to the stage select? Are you sure you know how to upgrade your characters? Like, oh my god, shut up. Like, it just makes the act of going to the next stage slow and annoying. I never really commented on the menus before because I never had to. They were always out of the way and did what they were supposed to do. That's just what decent UI is. But in X7, it just adds a lot more friction to everything. Oh, and alias hints are just as useless as ever. I don't feel the need to make fun of this again. It's just sad at this point. The stages this time are actually a lot more memorable than the last two games. To my surprise, they started giving them interesting mechanics and themes again. A lot of stages in X5 and X6 just felt there, but pretty much every stage in X7 felt unique in its own way. Soldier Stone Kong stage is a bit basic. It's mainly a jungle with a stone ruins aesthetic, but it has a fun mechanic with the totems to move around. My only real issue with the stage is that the camera's too zoomed in and I can barely see 2 feet in front of me. Snipe Anteater probably had the most nauseating stage. It has that mechanic from Cyber Peacock where you can flip the stage upside down, except it actually means something for once. The orange tiles let you go to the underside of the stage and vice versa. It's a cool way to show off the 3D, but you watch this rotating animation so much that it's definitely gonna make someone sick. I don't usually get motion sickness or anything like that, and even I was feeling out of it by the end. It's an otherwise cool stage, I just wish they chose a different way to convey the stage getting flipped. And also didn't mess with the controls when it's upside down. Like what was up with that? Ride Borsky stage is pretty dumb on paper. You ride a motorbike along a highway and you have to run over a bunch of bombs to defuse them. And if you miss one, there's no way to reverse it, so you gotta do another lap around the track to get back to it. But honestly, if you take your time, it's pretty easy. A little annoying, sure, but 3 minutes is plenty of time to get through this. The worst part is definitely this jump, though. The bike loves going crazy when you land, and I end up missing the closest bomb half the time. But other than that, this place is much better than I expected it to be. Like, the first time I saw this, I was like, ugh, this shit already? But then I finished it like second try after I got used to the controls and track layout. Honestly, I'd take this bike stage over X4s and X5s. At least this one's easy. The Tornado Tunyon stage is definitely the least interesting. It's basically just a long hallway with not much going on, aside from a few disappearing blocks near the end. I guess that'd be fine if, again, the camera wasn't so zoomed in. Seriously, why do this? The game doesn't look good enough to enhance it and show us all the nitty-gritty details. I appreciate that it's 60 FPS, but, you know, maybe that's why it's so zoomed in. And that's probably why enemies spawn like 2 feet in front of you. Now that I'm thinking about it, plenty of PS2 games ran at 60 FPS. Plenty of better-looking PS2 games ran at 60 FPS. I don't know, maybe this game just looks bad. Whatever. Anyway, good luck beating Tornado Tunyon's mid-boss with 0. He leaves you so little opportunity to attack him that you might as well just brute force it with Axel. It's not like it's a hard boss either, you just need an actual ranged attack to hit him consistently. Splash Warfly stage wasn't anything too special, but I really like being on this sinking fleet of air carriers that has to go around rescuing a bunch of Reploids. It's a really cool way to tie that mechanic into a stage theme. Vanishing Gungerer stage is pretty cool because this whole gimmick is giving you ride armors to play around with. You've got a turret one that can shoot everything and do a bunch of damage with mortar cannons, and you've got this spider one that can jump high and hit stuff with melee attacks. It's a pretty basic stage otherwise, probably to accommodate the bigger player size, but it's a cool gimmick that doesn't overstay its welcome. And too bad that the ride armors are never used anywhere else that I can think of. I actually really liked Wind Crow Rang stage. Jumping between planes on an air fleet that uses platforms is just a really cool idea. My only real gripe with it is that the heart tank was kind of annoying to collect. You pretty much have to kill yourself. It's like that one heart tank in X2. The laser cannons near the end are really funny because they can barely hit you when you ride up next to them. They don't do their job very well. Although the stage definitely did need some transition to the boss. You go inside this big airship, then you walk through a door and you're on top of the ship suddenly. Making this door some kind of elevator would have made so much sense. It could have been like Storm Eagle where it made the ship blow up before you fight him. Or how X5 at least had you walk onto the plane they used to fight the Skyver. Also, there's an unskippable cutscene whenever you die in the first section with all the planes. What? I saved Flame High Note for last. We all know why. I already said my piece about the voice acting, but this is the only time in the game where it's unbearable. But it's also kind of funny. Like, dude, you gotta say more than 3 lines. We can't just all say our favorite catchphrases all the time. Like, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe. I can't just say that all the time. It gets annoying to people. Maybe I just think this is funny because of how much I've played Xenoblade 2. It's been 7 years and I'm still laughing at this. Why am I still laughing at this? Is Flame High in order what people think Xenoblade sounds like? The sound mixing in this game in general is pretty awful, especially in this stage. There's so many loud and obnoxious sound effects that I can barely hear the music. This track is actually pretty good, but I can barely remember it because of everything else that's playing over it. The music in general is pretty forgettable. The result screen, stage select, and boss themes are like the only ones I remember at all. I remember liking Soldier Stone Kong's music because it sounded like something out of Star Force. That was about it. The music sounds good when listening to it in isolation, but I just can't remember any of it after playing the game, other than the boss theme. theme. But believe me, when I beat this boss, my ears felt very relieved that I didn't have to listen to this mess anymore. It's only funny for so long. The part in the stage with all the lava everywhere is pretty funny too. With the glide armor, you can just glide past everything and barely even play this section. Game design is my passion. Although, speaking of the armor, the item collection in this game is actually pretty straightforward. We're back to one armor set, probably because you have to unlock X. You also need to enter the stage as X to collect the armor, but none of them are annoying to get to. Since you have to wait to unlock X to get everything, you may as well just save getting the heart tanks for X. He's gonna be your main damage dealer for the end stages anyway. I don't get this though. Even in X5, you could still get armor parts at 0, so why do I suddenly need to have X with me? Whatever. Weirdly enough, none of the upgrades require you to use any weapons. They're all just hidden out of view. Like how there's a heart tank and an energy tank on the pillars at the end of Gungaru's stage. Something you wouldn't notice unless you actually took the time to look around. Needing abilities to get more upgrades definitely added to that Metroidvania feel, and it was really cool. All the pickups here just feel placed around without much rhyme or reason by comparison. It just doesn't feel as satisfying to get everything, especially since there's no feedback for collecting pickups. Like, there's not even a sound effect that plays. They got this right the first time. The game pauses and shows your health bar growing. It makes you instantly feel stronger, even if one heart tank doesn't increase your health by that much. X4 onwards didn't pause the action to emphasize this. While you still felt stronger by the end, it was hard to tell how much a single pickup helped. In X7, there's literally nothing. No fanfare or no pausing, your health just increases with no indication that anything happened. It's so lame. Just like the weapons, there's only one weapon that actually seems to do anything good. The Volt Tornado does so much damage that it pretty much became the "I'm tired of dealing with you" button. Like, this thing does more damage to bosses than their weakness a lot of the time, including Tornado Tunyon. It's not quite Metal Blade's good. It has a pretty limited range and not enough ammo to abuse it. Zero's version of the weapon has you press triangle during a dash, so it's easier to abuse there, but it's a lot more awkward to activate, so it's far from overpowered. Regardless of that, it's by far the only weapon that actually does anything. I'm really glad I misread the weakness order and did Tornado Tunyon early. This thing's a beast. Axel and Zero do get some unique weapons that replace their saber or pistol. It's an awesome idea that's completely wasted because most of them barely make a difference. Axel gets a laser pistol from Tornado Tunyon, which does a little more damage than the default weapon, but not by much. He still gets the Volt Tornado from this, thank god. He also gets this grenade launcher from Gungaru, which makes Axel a lot more usable. It's just that depending on how you went through the game, you might not have beaten Gungaru before unlocking X, so why even bother? Zero gets a spear from Splash Warfly, but it doesn't feel that much different from the Z-Saber, so again, why bother? Wind Crowrang gives Zero daggers that can be used like boomerangs. This is actually really nice because it gives Zero a viable ranged attack, but at the same time, you're always going to have a ranged attacker in reserve, so you may as well just switch characters. However, the bosses are definitely a pain in the ass, especially Snipe Anteater. Dude just runs to the other side of the stage half the time, and attacking him is just annoying. And because the moving wheel is completely worthless, you need the Volt Tornado to even stand a chance against him. And Soldier Stone Kong kills you in like 4 hits from contact when you have the starting amount of health. And he always hits you like frame 1. Like, what the hell? If you fight him after you come back with X and his weakness, he's actually kind of easy because of the lock-on letting you hit him while he's in the background, but you can still take a lot of damage really quickly if you're not careful. Flame Heinard is kind of irritating, but once you get on top of the mech and hit him with a splash laser, stun locking him isn't that hard. But I did have to finish him off with a Volt Tornado because I never bothered upgrading my weapon energy capacity. But the other bosses are just kind of there. For a lot of the bosses fought in 3D, you can just keep your distance with X or Axel really easily. Their attacks aren't generally enough of a threat to catch you off guard, especially with Tornado Tunyon. During his second phase, his attacks are so laughably easy to dodge that you can just keep hitting him with Axel's pistol until he eventually dies. This took me like 6 minutes. And then there's Wind Crowrang and Splash Warfly that have Spark Mandrill Syndrome, especially Warfly with Zero. Like, the bosses in this game are all over the place, man. Vanishing Gungaru is at least a cool idea. You fight him piloting a ride armor and then you fight him outside of it, but he's pretty unnoteworthy aside from the basic idea of him. The worst part about all these bosses is how long they take. The endgame boss rush usually takes like 10 minutes, maybe 15 if the boss set is particularly annoying, but X7's boss rush took 25 minutes. And keep in mind that there's 2 loading screens in between each fight, so on PS2 it probably took an extra 5 minutes on top of that. I played X7 on Switch, and the Legacy Collection luckily makes the load times a non-issue. They're probably even faster on PS4 and PC. And honestly, this boss rush just felt flat out pointless. Boss rushes were always there to just pad out the game, but considering you get a near full sub-tank refill after every fight and lives don't mean anything, it just feels like a waste of time. it's not a skill check. If you could beat these guys when you're weaker, you can definitely do it now. If you're gonna make something like this required, why make it feel so tacked on? You could just brute force your way through it, even if you're exceptionally bad at video games. It doesn't add anything of value. At this point, the end stages are the only thing left to talk about. And honestly, there's not much of note here. The first stage has this giant steamroller chasing you for some reason. It honestly feels out of place. Like, there's no warning or build up to it or anything. You just go and storm Red's base and he's like, bet. This stage isn't even hard. The boss is a little annoying, but once you hit him with 2 explosions, it's pretty easy to take him down from there. Having to replay the second half of the stage when he dies is the real threat here. There was also only 2 end stages, which is a bit much. I feel you could have made the standard unmemorable end stage, then you fight Red, then the last stage is a boss rush, then Sigma. It feels like 2 stages smushed together for no reason. I guess it wouldn't be so bad if there wasn't a 25-minute boss rush, but there is. So yeah, it's a bit too long. There's a part where I pick a split path to go down, which is neat, but I'm not playing this again to see what was down the other path. I'm not sure why they bothered doing this. The Red fight is honestly a bit basic. You just move between platforms and hit him when he shows up. Don't stand on the same platform as him. Aside from the camera freaking out half the time, there isn't much to say about it. The first Sigma phase is like that too. Not much to say aside from his comically large gun. Once you get the patterns down, you pretty much win. Despite how menacing this giant death ray looks, you just crouch to avoid taking damage. That's it. It's pretty funny, actually. The second phase took me a while to get, though. And by a while, I mean like 20 minutes. Fighting a giant robot in space is pretty cool. This definitely feels like a final boss. I'm just not sure what I did differently when I did win. Staying on the left part of the stage just makes you more likely to not die for some reason. It's a pretty straightforward fight once you figure that out. Before that point, though, you fall off the stage constantly, either from Sigma pushing you off or bad depth perception. The stage itself is more threatening than Sigma, although it's really annoying that there's no way to refill your sub-tanks once the fight starts. Like, for how generous they were with health for the boss rush, they're very stingy with it now. When you get a game over, you restart at the second phase, so lives don't matter anymore, but still, it's annoying. Like, just put one of those giant health pickups on the starting platform. Like, come on. And that was Mega Man X7. It was actually a lot better than I expected. From what I heard watching YouTube videos about X7, I was under the impression that a 3D Mega Man X game was fundamentally flawed, but it isn't. It controls mostly like you'd expect it to, aside from the weird lock-on at times, and maybe the wall jumping feels a bit off. But I don't think this game did a bad job transitioning to 3D. There's potential here for something good, and the game's actually doing new things to shake up the gameplay, like being 3D. It has interesting mechanics and themes for stages. It's actually doing things to address the problems I had with the last 2 games? What? I hadn't heard a single person ever say anything good about this game, so I'm shocked that I actually enjoyed it. I feel like I'm missing something here. I'm supposed to be having a miserable time, but I'm actually enjoying this? X7 was way less of a slog than X6. It took me 10 days to get through that game, but I was going through X7 at the same pace as the other games. I was waiting for this game to make some kind of cardinal sin that makes it completely unbearable, but it never happened. Like, did I play the same game as everyone else? I'm kind of at a loss as to why it's such a laughingstock. It feels like a weird experiment more than anything else. So I did something I never do with these videos. I watched other people's videos about it. I don't normally look up other videos on the same topic of something I'm making, just so that I don't subconsciously steal someone else's words, because I definitely did that early on. But at this point, I don't think it's possible for me to regurgitate someone else's opinion about X7. And like, I see where everyone's coming from. I can see why someone would think the game has boring level design and all that. I don't disagree with a lot of the common complaints. I just didn't dislike playing it. I guess I went in expecting the worst, to the point where I didn't even notice that sometimes enemies knock you down and you have to get back up. What? That was never a thing before. I can't believe they added tripping to Mega Man X. How did I not notice that? I definitely agree with Jay's reviews that the game needed to reinvent itself if it wanted to commit to being 3D. Just making another Mega Man X, but in 3D, was always a bad way to approach design in the game. Plenty of games had to completely change themselves to work with the Z-axis. Just look at Mario. It went from a linear side-scroller to an objective-based sandbox. Or how Metroid was a side-scroller that turned into a first-person adventure. Having Mega Man X be some weird character action game like Devil May Cry or something could have been really cool. Or even having it be something more akin to Ratchet & Clank could have worked pretty well. And to be honest, Mega Man Legends already figured most of this out anyway. Making X7 the way they did was just misguided in hindsight. Ideas that work in 2D don't always work in 3D. Ultimately, I don't think X7 ever did anything particularly awful, so treating this game like any other Mega Man game seemed more interesting than beating a dead horse and shitting on it the whole time. But don't just take it from me. X7 was a big reminder that you need to experience things yourself and form your own opinion on them. Don't let some YouTuber give you their opinion to substitute your own. Play the game yourself. Leave an angry comment detailing your own unique experiences playing the game, just as long as it's your opinion and not what someone else told you to think about a game you didn't play. X Legacy Collection 2 goes on sale for like $8 or less pretty often. Capcom could have absolutely pretended that X6 and X7 didn't exist, but they made sure to make them just as accessible as the rest of the X games, which I have to respect them for. Although I still don't know why they didn't include Mega Man and Base in Legacy Collection 2, but whatever. I've been in a bit of a creative slump with these videos, if my output wasn't already an indication of that. And this video about Mega Man X7 of all things has been the easiest one for me to play through and write in a while, and I don't really know why. Look, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that Mega Man X7 is some misunderstood gem or anything like that. This is still a pretty mediocre game. It's pretty easy to see why people don't like it. But at the same time, I find it hard to call it a Sonic 06 level disaster. I guess it goes to show how quality Mega Man usually is. Either we can have a mediocre game like X7 or Mighty No. 9 and people treat the game like a war criminal. At the end of the day, X7 is just forgettable. It's truly one of the games of all time. I don't feel it does anything particularly terrible, but obviously doesn't do anything well enough to warrant calling it good. You know, an IGN 6 out of 10 game. But for some people, I guess that's worse than being bad.